Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Again, a reminder, we will be recording today's session for later viewing. Um, If you do not want to be recorded, please feel free to disable the camera connection to Zoom. Welcome. I'm Michael Ward in Silver Spring, Maryland, just outside of Washington, D.C. My co-organizer and co-founder of these sessions with Barry Strugatz is Redmond Entwistle in London. Good afternoon, Redmond.
Hi, Mike.
We thank you all for coming today and joining with other students practicing Tai Chi in the lineage of Chengmen Ching. These sessions began as a way to stay connected during a time of social isolation and have since evolved into a forum for sharing more of our Tai Chi practice in a spirit of fellowship and scholarship. We meet here every Wednesday at the same time. Please feel free to share the details of these sessions with your students, classmates, and teachers. All are welcome to come and participate. We are using a newsletter format and sending out a reminder newsletter every week with what we'll be doing in the coming 2-week sessions. If you're not getting that newsletter, just let us know and we can connect you to the subscription page. When you subscribe to it, you'll be asked for your birth date. You do not have to give your birth date. You can just leave that blank and just register. So you don't have to give any more information that you want. The main thing we need in the registration for the subscription is your email address. Just a quick reminder, we are trying to get a broader range of voices involved in the forum, and we're asking those of you who would like to speak or ask a question to please use either the raise hand icon or type your question or comment into chat, and we'll be alternating between the two once we get to that portion of today's session. We are next week, a reminder again, we are planning to do part 2 of a tribute to Ben Lowe because so many people had wanted to speak about how Ben influenced their lives and their Tai Chi practice. We were unable to get everybody who wanted to speak due to our time limitation in the last time. So we're going to do another session this coming week. We do ask, we're going to try and get to everybody if we can. We do ask that when you speak, please try and be very brief and succinct because there will be a lot of people who are going to want to say something as well. So next week will be part 2 of the Ben Lowe tribute, and we look forward to that. Today, we're going to continue our discussion on principles of Tai Chi, and today is really exploring stability, the idea of balance. To start our discussion, we're going to have 3 experienced practitioners use posture or postures in the form to highlight their understanding of how fine stability can be and the principles and attention to it that it requires. After the 3 presenters have spoken, we'll open it up to everyone to share their ideas on practice and the role of stability and balance in practice. Again, we ask that speakers please be succinct and with your comments so that everyone who would like to speak can have a chance to do so. As always, today we're going to be following a video of Professor Cheng doing the first third of the form. The video was shot by Ken Van Sickle. We'll do that twice. We thank Ken for letting us use that. And then we're going to be going to Richard Iannuzzi for our final first third. When we get to that point, I'll give a little introduction to Richard. So now if you want to get in a position to be able to do a little Tai Chi, again, we'll follow the professor through 2 trips up to crossing hands and then go to Rich Iannuzzi. Redmond, we're not hearing the postures from you.
Ward off left. Ward off right. Roll back. press, push, single whip, lift hands, strike with shoulder, white crane spreads wings, brush left knee, play guitar, brush left knee, step forwards, block, parry, punch, withdraw, push, cross hands. And back to the beginning. Preparation. Raise hands. Ward off left. Ward off right. Press. Push. Single whip. Lift hands. Strike with shoulder. White crane spreads wings. Brush left knee. Play guitar. Brush left knee. Step forwards. Block. Parry. Punch. Withdraw. Push. And cross hands.
Alexa, stop. Alexa, stop.
So now we'll be going to Richard Iannuzzi for our final first third. Rich was introduced to Wolf Lowenthal's There Are No Secrets by a friend in 2000. That led him to connect with Wolf and his school, Long River Tai Chi Circle, where shortly after that he began his Tai Chi journey with Wolf's senior student, Lenny Friedland. He continues to study with both Lenny and Wolf and also teaches at the school. So Rich, if you're ready, go ahead and take us through the first third again.
Preparation. Raise hands. ward off left, ward off right, roll back, press, push, single whip, lift hands, strike with shoulder, white crane spread swings, brush left knee, play guitar, brush left knee, step forwards, block, parry, punch, withdraw, push, cross hands.
Thank you, Rich. Did you want to say something? Did you want to say anything about Wolf, the school, anything before we move on?
Yeah, I would just take a moment to express gratitude for this lineage in general and my teachers, Wolf, and also Ed and Maggie, and the teacher I've spent the most time with, Lenny Friedland, and just encourage and hope that our practice is of benefit to everybody in our world.
Great. Thank you,
folks.
Rich.
Appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, thank you. Okay. Redmond, is Natasha on?
She is. Natasha?
I'm unmuted now.
Hi.
Right?
Okay, great.
Okay.
There you
Hi
are.
there.
Okay.
So we're talking about balance or stability, which has something to do with balance. And I just thought just 5 minutes before now to just read out a few words, that because Professor Cheng, when he taught us about Tai Chi, he also taught us that it was about self-cultivation. And so it's not only a martial art, but it's also a self-cultivation. And I find that
Natasha, be careful. Your papers are rustling against
Sorry.
the microphone.
sorry.
It's okay.
That if I say a few words like patience, presence, awareness, softness, acceptance, honesty, letting go of resistance, exploring, all these things have to do with the stability, actually, in a funny way. I mean, they're all related. The straight line, the balance as opposed to counterbalance, to get the weight to go down through one point. So even if you have your arm up, it's not the arm muscles that are holding you up, it's the root. That weight of whatever's external to you, I mean, wherever you put your arms, has to also go down into the root. And that adds to the stability. The presence is like the qi and the dantian. The mind has to come out of the head and into the body, and then that also creates stability. All these things, and above all, patience to do them, patience to listen, patience to be thorough and also investigative at the points of change of yin and yang, especially. All those bits are interesting bits. When you move, how does your weight change from let's say 100% or even getting to 100%, that the weight has to go into the back leg and you have to continue until it changes to coming forward. It's like you can't cut off the operation. All of these things add to the stability. Balance comes by having the patience to be thorough, not pour a glass of water and just, haphazardly. You have to get every drop out as best you can, because we're none of us perfect, but we do our best. And that allows you to sink, allows you to relax your mind also into the ground. And then from that, when it's finished going down, it will come up. It's just the laws of nature, like the ocean, it comes up to the seashore, and when it's finished, it goes back down into itself. So it condenses and it explodes. So all of that thing, I'm not saying anything that nobody knows, but often in myself and in my students, I see we're impatient because we're afraid of taking the weight into the leg. But actually, you don't need to take it into the leg. It needs to go into the ground from the leg itself. So that further adds to stability. So everything that we do, if I just go, sorry, I'm not in the right place to show you, but even in the beginning of the form, even just that to really go down until the other leg is empty. It's like half the times we cut it off and then we have to lift a leg and step out. It's by finishing, that's where the patience come in, that by finishing the first movement, keep on going in that direction, then this is free. Then it can step out anywhere, like simple whip or anything like that, or even carry tiger to the mountain or four corners. The stability comes by finishing what you'd started, sort of thing, in terms of the weight going into the foot, to really allow yourself the time to listen to the body, to let go of resistance within the body. So it's not that you're going to collapse, it's the internal part that has to soften and stop resisting. Mostly we resist, we fear pain in the legs or something like that, and then we resist. But actually, if you do it gently enough with the right aim, it doesn't have to be painful. It's a very precise thing. So it's like threading a needle each time. If you can thread the needle, I'm mixing all my analogies together, but like an hourglass, letting the sand go through that narrow neck till it goes down to the ground, then the top is empty. Then you turn over. At the right timing, it just does it by itself. It turns itself over and it comes to the next position. When that finishes that position, then it comes to the next position. So if we can do our forms that way, then we have the stability. I know lots of people want to speak, so I can just stop there if anybody wants to say.
Well, we'll come back to you, Natasha. We're going to go to Jano and Ko are also going to say a few words about it. And then as people want to come back to any of the three of you, we'll come back.
Okay.
Okay. Jano, do you want to go next?
Sure. Natasha, I wish you had gone on and spoken a little more slowly. You're so good.
Sorry.
There is a recording that will be available and you can get her words from there.
Say more. Okay, when I talk today, I'm going to include some interpretation of what I remember of what Maggie was either teaching or doing and my own ideas. The main thing for me was that Maggie was a model. That was the main thing that she taught us. She had impeccable alignment in every part of herself, fullness and fluidity in her movement, and a focused, unified field of attention. I believe all of this gave her stability and balance. I think there is no stability without balance, so I will talk about both together. Natasha talked about that it's a bigger idea, stability, and I would say that practice leads to stability. And going to class, Maggie's class on Tuesday night was like church for all of us. We didn't miss. And it was, no matter what was happening in your life, you always went to Tai Chi class and it grounded you. And you had a group of people that also you could depend on. And it was so dependable that now that Maggie stopped teaching, we're still practicing on Tuesday nights together and teaching each other. So I think that's a very deep part of stability. I often fell into the practice of taking class on the left side of the room. And when I didn't go there, Maggie sometimes moved me over there. That put me in the position of having to lead during the big single leg postures, golden pheasant, separation hand and foot, the beginning of turn to kick with the heel and turn to sweep the lotus. Although I always felt self-conscious about potentially losing balance in front of everyone, I thought my balance was basically good and I never actually fell down. However, one day I discovered I had been locking my legs to hold the postures. Oh no, that wasn't real stability or balance. I had to erase the board and start all over. In dance, and I was a dancer, and other physical exercise, the current wisdom is to stabilize core muscles during all movements of the body to maintain alignment of the spine. Using the intrinsic muscles of the spine in the back and the front is accompanied by counter tension and counterbalance to oppose or balance with an equal weight or force through the torso and limbs. In the practice of Tai Chi, I believe we work with opposing forces, but it is the yin and yang of the chi moving and balancing, not muscular forces. Alexander teachers, and I am one, talk about a primary control, the free lengthening of the spine with the head leading, that as part of the large whole body moving and responding to stimuli without tension. In our practice of Tai Chi, the concept of central equilibrium seems very similar to the Alexander technique concept. In addition, we use a release into the ground and the support we get back from the ground to instigate the flow of chi to move our bodies. Stability and balance need to be achieved at every moment and every change of weight. Balancing is a constant flow of subtle movements throughout our bodies that accommodate where we put our feet and where we turn. There's a particular sequence of thinking, releasing, and moving that has to be followed for balance to happen and stability to maintain on the way to any particular posture. Maggie talked about stability and balance indirectly. She used the image of an open tube for our legs and our bodies to access the ground and let the chi through. In later years, she told us she regretted that she had neglected opening upward more by focusing so intently on the ground. I used her epiphany to add opening upwards to my practice. She didn't talk too much about the spine itself, but would often touch her students to improve their alignment. One day she had us prop our swords into our pants to remind us to be upright. She liked to pull up on the belt, holding someone's pants up to help them drop into the ground while they were upright. She took some of us to study calligraphy in South Philadelphia for a while. I don't know if she ever said this directly, but I began to feel that each Tai Chi posture was completely balanced like each symbol in calligraphy. A symbol would be balanced within a square, but each line flowed into the next. The movement of the body starts in the ground and is directed by the dantian, which is how we also practiced our calligraphy. The brush was suspended lightly straight up like we do with our spines. She said you needed to cultivate a certain quality in your connections to the ground and to the air. She always looked to me like she was being embraced and held up by the air and the ground. Nothing would disturb her balance. If you touched her, she took your touch into the ground. When she moved the sword, it was as though the sword was welded to her hand and it was coming out of the ground. She was stable and connected at every transition, and the sword movement was therefore powerful. She talked about using the connection between the substantial leg and substantial hand to balance. She did not mean this in a muscular way, but as an inner mental connection with the dantian in the air. Sometimes she brought in the idea that you needed both arms to balance. For example, in separation hand and foot and turn and kick with the heel. At one point, it might have been to encourage us to get all of our unruly parts organized into a unified whole. She asked us to stop at the end of each posture and imagine we were on the cover of Martial Arts magazine. She said you needed to move as a whole body with no holes, so that if you were filled with water, none would leak out. I believe this contributes to stability. A ball is stable and impenetrable wherever it rolls, but if it gets a hole in it, it deflates. A boat with holes in it can't float. She asked us to have the dantian lead and control our movements, so we wouldn't arbitrarily move our arms and feet or extend them too far. She said, do not aggress the air with force. I believe when we move our legs and arms independently of our dantian or with excessive force, we pull ourselves off of our center, unroot ourselves, and lose our stability. While our stability centers around one point, it is actually a larger field of possibility that surrounds that point. The center of the heel is the point, but it is the full heel that needs to make contact with the ground. The foot doesn't release to the floor, it releases into the earth as if there were no floor and no end to the earth. When the head top is suspended, the release and opening doesn't stop at the top of the head. We open to the sky and there's no end to the sky. At the same time, we hang down from the head top, so the sky is connected to the earth through internal movement, through our internal movement. Stability comes from our attitude and our focus. If we are startled or angered by a sound, a person, a thought, or an event, we get tight and tense. We get pulled off of our center and out of the ground. Stability comes from staying focused on our central equilibrium and the ground when things happen. We need to think of ourselves in a three-dimensional way, not a linear one. We can move through space well-balanced and stable if we use all of our support, the ground, the air around us, the sky, our internal structure, and our chi. When we neglect any of this or any piece of ourselves in our awareness, we lose balance and stability simultaneously. Okay, so I'm going to do a couple of single leg postures, but I want you to all know I've had knee surgery and I fractured my kneecap, and standing on one leg is really difficult, and sometimes I fall. Sometimes I don't lift my leg, opposite leg, so I'll just do the best I can. So what I'm trying to do, and I'll try to talk about this as I do it, I don't know how that'll go, but I am sinking or releasing down into the earth to initiate each transition. I'm keeping an awareness of my whole body. This is theoretical. All the parts of me are continually moving sequentially, but as a whole. I'm continuing to maintain the alignment and releasing forward of my standing knee as I turn my pelvis away from it. I'm maintaining and turning around my central equilibrium without letting my head lean forward towards my front hand and kicking foot. Floating the hands and feet that aren't on the ground only as far as my sinking and my dantian send them. Don't use any muscular force with the kicking leg or two arms. Well, of course I will do that absolutely perfectly. Not. So take this down to here. Okay, I'll try this a couple of different ways to see. Whew, a little nervous. All right, so from squatting single whip, you can see I don't go down very low. One of Maggie's ideas was that when we go from foot to foot, we send a mental root first. So we don't just shift. Our mind goes to the root. The weight follows the root into the ground. We turn into a 70-30, diagonally, slightly diagonally forward. Now to get upright, I'm going to sink through my standing leg, drop it a little bit more into a rotation. So the The dropping sends my pelvis folding into my standing leg a little more. And then I'm coming fully upright, sinking again so my lower back releases. I find my heel, and then this is the tricky part for me now. My head is up over my foot, but my spine needs to be open, and the rolling of my dantian brings my knee and hand floating, theoretically. Okay, and the left hand is balancing down here. This is the yang hand, but it needs to not be yang in a muscular way. So I'm not lifting it up. I'm trying to, maybe I can show this from this side. Oh, I did the wrong posture. Well, all right, golden pheasant. I'll do both. And then the rolling of the dantian brings the hand up. So I haven't lifted my hand up with force. I also haven't brought my knee and then my hand. Everything is organized and all together. In addition to releasing into the ground, I need to release my whole body and open all my joints like the ball. And I can think of my body as opening, and I can also think of my chi ball as being open and big. So I'll just do that one more time, and then I'll do separation. So into the ground, rolling my dantian ball, rolling a big chi ball that I am folding in, folding out, sinking down. The dantian brings my hand and knee up. My foot goes back. As I sink into the standing leg, I send a mental root to the right foot. It takes me over to the right foot. I rotate my pelvis into the standing leg, rotate back, roll the dantian ball, sinking, continuing to sink, and the knee and the hand float up. Head top over my foot. Okay, so then I was going to do separation hand and foot, so I'll do that now. I'll do it facing this way. Okay. Again, sinking down, I'm going to rotate around my central equilibrium, touch the foot. I'm facing the back corner, so I have rolled, I have turned. The back part of my body's come forward and the front part of my body's gone back. Also the energy body doing the same thing. So back. Now I sent the mental root into the left leg, follow it through under the ground, and turn the dantian. Now turn the dantian away from the standing knee. But the problem is most people let the left knee in. And of course, that's my surgical knee, so I really can't do that wrong for you because I'll hurt myself. So the pelvis goes this way, the knee's continuing to go this way. Let's see, it's a lot to talk about. Sinking down, rotating the around central equilibrium, send the root, flow to the leg. My hands have only moved because I've sunk and I've turned, they float up in the front direction, in the front diagonal. And if I've added something, I'll pull myself off of my leg and off of my center. So I keep my back as full as I can. I sink down again, keeping my head top up. Again, it's easy to have your head go with your hands, either down or out, wherever. So keep your head up over your spine, sinking down, float the arms because you're turning the dantian, folding into the hip so that nothing disturbs the root. Nothing disturbs the root as you go down again, still at the back corner, and then sitting down into the root again, rotate the pelvis away from the standing leg. The knee has to keep going forward, head top over, whole body full, both arms and leg. Now, as my leg goes out, I don't want to just think about my leg. I want to think about my whole back half, and I want to think about my center, and I want to think about the back hand. Even though the front hand is yang, the left hand is still part of the balance. And Maggie talked about it coming from the back. So that's actually your back balancing your arms, which help balance your whole body, which helps get your leg up there. So I do the second one. So it's like, okay, bad knee, sinking down into the foot. So when my knee's not doing, can't handle it, I keep my foot on the ground. Still working with the principles. Open through the central, heel into the ground, head top over my heel. Stepping out, send the root, go under the ground, turn the dantian against into the pelvis, into the leg, float your hands up. Okay, this is, I see myself coming a little forward in the computer, so that's what happens. Head up, open the lower back, 70-30. Now, to get into this 100%, Go down to the ground again. Rotate the pelvis even more against the standing leg. Open the pelvis away from the standing leg. Sitting down, sit bones, open my back. Everything connected. I think that's enough.
Look good. Thank you, Jano.
I got through it. Okay, thank you all.
You did very well. It was beautiful. Thank you. KO, is KO
That
here?
was great.
Do we have KO?
KO is here, yes.
KO is here. Good. You want to go ahead, KO?
Okay, I'm glad these are being recorded. That's a wealth of information. The topic has kind of morphed over the last week. Basically, there were two words. Let's consider stability and delicacy came up. What I'd like to do here, kind of like the former presenters, is make a map of my understanding of what stability might be about. A map might contain some definitions found in Taiji. Whatever definition I have is always change as my understanding, my comprehension changes. The difficulty is simplifying. So my teacher said he had two secrets. Well, what are those two secrets? One is nature. The other is unity. Unity is simple. Nature, we tend to consider nowadays nature is something outside. It's scenery, natural resources. That's a problem. Problems have solutions. So nature, a couple of the things that we are dealing with in stability is our circumstance as a vertebrate. We're the only vertebrate that is upright on two legs. If you have four legs, a lot of things are simplified. We don't have many examples among the rest of creation that we can go by. Tai Chi Chuan, problems have solutions. Tai Chi Chuan is one solution. Part of the nature that we deal with is gravity. Gravity is insubstantial. Much of Tai Chi beyond the physical therapy level is also insubstantial. Paying attention to what is the nature of gravity. Gravity that's moving through my body, and gravity moves through, is the same everywhere else. The utilities behind me, etc. Another observation is I haven't met anybody who isn't kind of constantly off balance, but we rarely fall. Why is that? Tai Chi Chuan, I think, addresses that question. The word delicate came up. I want to take a look at that. Delicate in a natural situation, nature is not fragile. Right now in our area, it's springtime. The first wildflowers in the mountains are coming up. Terribly delicate, wonderfully delicate. Last night, the temperature got down to, about 18 degrees. Everything is frozen. There's winds, there's snow, there's herbivores. They're tough. The delicacy that we're looking at is not a fragile one. In nature, we need to consider two things. One is a point, and the other is a line. Anything that moves with grace, balance, power has a center point. Mathematics is supposed to be the language of nature. A point has no volume, no area. You can't put with the finest pencil a point because it has volume. That's where we enter metaphysics. A line, likewise, the distance between two points. has no width. We cannot draw a line. This is where Yi, mind, comes in. Stability on the map that I'm using starts with calm. Lee EU says before you even begin momentum, you must attain a certain quality of calm. Lee EU, where most of my map is now from, along with what I've been given by my teacher and other teachers, starts with calm. Calm can, as one teacher says, if we don't have calm, we're trying to make a lot of internal explorations, cause and effect. If we don't have calm, we have a shaky internal camera. Calm can lead to relax. Relax can lead to sung. Now we have a Chinese word. Sung, basically, maybe the best translation is sinking. Sinking is always down. Classics, where there's down, there's up. Not only a Chinese ideal, it's kind of a on earth as in heaven kind of idea. There's a unity here. Why calm? Why stability? Many reasons. Lee EU says in his 5 principles that calm, we need stability, because without it we cannot have agility. They're necessary, they complement. The principle that I think is most pertinent in considering agility is seek the straight in the curve. And straight, which may be best first, up and down. When a carpenter puts a plumb bob or a right angle against a wall, if it's straight up and down, carpenter says that's true. Okay, it's true. Down is movement. In Taiji, wherever there's movement, there has to be a still point. So in order to understand stability, we have to consider both movement and still point. One of the considerations that help me understand this is, okay, like the sun is the still point for the planets. All the planets move in relation to our star, the sun. But the sun also moves. Physicists say it spirals. So here is as close a demonstration of sung. Let's see, can't see, okay. Here I pick up a wet rag. Everything in this rag moves downward, the water, but it's all in relation to where I've touched it here. This is the still point. It's moving, but everything in the rag is moving in relation to where I'm holding it. The sung quality is the water moving down from that still point. Our still point is assessed by the Marshall crown. It's the top of our head. Every part of our body then moves in moving relationship to this. Our method of practice, and there are principles, these are in the classics, very simply spoken. And then there are methods of practice. It was helpful to me when I understood the virtues, the principles are not in the methods. Many methods. Form is a method. Even in our form, how many different methods of practice are there? Methods are a way to bridge our comprehension, our behavior, to be as the principles suggest. We can argue and should perhaps really discuss methods. It's important, I believe, to stay with one method long enough that you understand it. We hop around between methods and we get very confused, particularly in the beginning. Moving to the curve from the straight. My teacher said that Tai Chi Chuan is like a ball rolling. However I move this ball, part of it is moving towards you, part of it's moving towards me or away from you. A ball that is moving erratically maintains its shape and all the functions, the possibilities of a sphere. There's always one point that is up. In relation to that, there's always one point that is down. But we don't know precisely in a moving body where that point is. That was very helpful to me in comprehending how do we have a dynamic appraisal of up and down. The down point is, of course, the Dantian. What is the Dantian? My teacher said it was a point. Professor said it's a bag. I think both of these are useful. The head top suspension. We have an idea. The Dantian, the earth. Heaven and earth, don't argue. Up and down, don't argue. The last thing I might add is, although I am never in what I would call, hey, this is really a marvelous balance, as many things that are natural are, I try to relatively always keep my mind with these ideas. And I think of a buoy at sea. If a buoy at sea tried to be upright, it would not have function. But because the weight and the roundness of the bottom cause it to always tend towards the upright, then it's able to take the principle of vertical. And in a moving world, find that T.S. Eliot so beautifully said it in his poem about time, a still point in the moving world. It isn't a fixed point. So that's kind of the map that I'm using now to explore stability, to lead to more agile expression. Okay, thank you.
Thanks so much, Keo. A lot of good food for thought there. We'd like to, at this point, open it up for questions, comments, either questions coming back to any of our presenters or your own thoughts and comments on this. Anyone out there have something you would like to add to the discussion or a question?
Carl Handel has a question or a comment.
Yeah, Carl, go ahead, Carl.
Have others found that a clue to instability is if when you are on your substantial leg and the other one is up, if you're wobbling in your foot, if your foot's doing anything, is that a sign of instability?
I'll jump in on that one. I think the foot is everything, personally, that if you think about it, where you contact the earth is your foot, and everything that happens above that in terms of balance is going to register through that connection. So yeah, so if you're wobbling in your foot, everything above that is also going to be wobbling.
Yeah.
So really, really paying close attention to how the foot contacts the earth, that the foot is relaxed and balanced as you bring the weight into it, I think is really important in terms of balance.
Follow up. Some teachers talk about 3 points, some talk about 7 points, some talk about 4 points, some talk about 6 points. I usually talk about no points, that it's just the bubbling spring, and that if you're actually on, if that's what's energetically connecting to the center of the earth, then the entire foot should be quiet. Is that your experience?
I think jumping back to what Kay was saying, that there's a lot of different methods. I think the experience of the foot being relaxed is the desired experience, and how you come at that from
Okay.
1, 7, or no points. I'm not sure if there's a right or wrong answer to that. Anybody else have a thought on that?
Lee has his hand. Lee, I
Okay,
think, wants to address that directly.
Lee, go ahead.
Yeah, to Carl's point, just to make it more confusing for you, Carl, I usually count 9 points, the 5 toes, the 2 balls, the heel, and the side. But I also think of the weight as spread evenly across the sole. And I think making a distinction between the sole of the foot versus the foot is an useful thing to work on.
Thank you.
One of the things that I've tried in this is thinking about the foot as bigger than the foot. So if you think about, like, if you're wearing a snowshoes or something like that, the weight of the foot, actual foot, is going to be coming down in that foot, but it's going to be distributed over a larger area. And sometimes thinking about that larger area helps relax the actual foot.
I think Natasha had a response as well.
Go ahead, Natasha.
I'm just going to say, I think if you aim for like the bubbling spring, of course, you may not achieve that. So you aim higher than what you can achieve, but I would go for the bubbling, for the no point, or and then let the foot do the best it can, because everybody's foot is not perfect either. So, you know, you have to just try to relax it and not really focus on the foot, because you want to go lower than the foot. You want to go into the ground, not stay at the level of the foot, of the sole of the foot, in my books. So, and then you might end up at the ground. I mean, you know, as the Italians say, dal dire al fare c'è di mezzo il mare. But between the doing and the talking and the doing, there's a whole ocean in between. So I think if you aim high, you might get the benefits of some of the others.
Thank
Great,
you.
thank you.
I think Robert Chakro has his hand up.
Robert?
Sorry, I was muted. Do you hear me?
Yes.
What I found worked for me, and especially my senior students, by seniors I mean people in their 80s and 90s, is feeling the weight distribution on the foot. In other words, instead of thinking of individual points, think of the whole weight distribution, having that centered on the center of the foot, which they talk about the yin chuen point, but the yin chuen point is a little bit forward of the actual center of the foot. And the other thing is that there are parts of the foot that have no weight on them, including the center of the foot. So this is a diagram of a foot, and you can see that the intersection of the forward line and the lateral lines are actually where there's no weight. There's no pressure at that point on the foot. So the thing about it is to learn where that point is, as was mentioned, and then when you're, let's say, all the weight's on one foot, to have the center of mass of the body be directly over that foot. So you have to then feel where your center of mass is. And you can think of it as 3 centers of mass: the lower abdomen, the upper the chest, and then the head. All of those have to be stacked directly above that point when all the weight is on the foot. And then what the exercise I used to give my seniors was to stand, feel that, and then move the other foot all different ways. As you lift your other foot, the weight of that and the leverage causes your center of mass, if you don't adjust, to go in that direction. So you have to feel how you have to move your center of mass oppositely to so that the entire center of mass of the body now is over the center of that foot. And then when the weight is not totally on one foot, but partially between one and the other foot, you want to still feel that point and feel the weight distribution on that foot being centered on the center. That's a whole issue, but I've worked on that, and as I age and my balance naturally gets worse, especially with the lack of strength of my legs and the arthritis that I'm experiencing, I found that is extremely important. Can I just show one move to show how that would work?
Sure, go ahead.
The punch is a very demanding move because when you get to this point where you're shifting your weight onto your right leg, the left foot has to go from all the way back to all the way forward. So as I'm doing that, as I'm shifting my weight onto my right foot, I'm feeling my center of mass moving along the line between the centers of the 2 feet to the center of the right foot. Now it's on the center of the right foot, and as I move my foot forward, if I don't do anything, the weight is going to pull me forward. So I have to feel what changes I have to make, which is moving my body oppositely. So as my left foot moves forward, and my arm too, my body has to move backward just the right amount. Now I put the foot down, and now I have both legs on the ground, so it's a lot easier. But that's one of my favorite moves for practicing that concept.
Great. Thank you, Robert.
Thank you.
Is Daniel next?
I'll take it. Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead, Daniel.
Yeah, thank you. I love all the amazing ideas that are coming out today. My sense about stability in Taiji Chuan is that it's very unique to any of the other functions or movement exercises, martial arts, gymnastics. In most cases, balance is trained through balance and strength training. And when you do that, you can compensate for being out of balance or in awkward positions. The brain can do that. It's a training. And then holding a core, I think Jana was talking about that. You can use muscles to create a balance where there should be a balance. But in Taiji, you can't do that. It just doesn't work. You have to find a different way to make that happen. And I agree with Natasha 100% in that it cannot be at the foot. It has to be below the foot. I remember Mr. Liu would say, I think this was published in one of his articles, that if you feel the root, that's not the root. It has to be 100% through the ground, through the foot into the ground. And to accomplish this in training, then you start with the postures. The hands have to be in the right place. The timing has to be correct. You can't have the sequence out of order, and your hands have to be in place. If that doesn't work, then you end up using the mind and muscles to compensate. So when the body postures start to become more and more honed, just the outer layer, then it starts to move inside and the relaxation can happen. And that leads to the next step, where if you're doing when you move onto a leg, especially one-legged postures, but this of course works at the very instant you separate yin and yang and you move into any one leg. The more you move into one leg, the more you're moving out of another leg. And the reason why that becomes important is as we move into a leg, especially when we want to do a kick, our instinct is to hold on to a certain place of stability and then lift up the leg. But that is becoming stuck. And now you're starting to use muscles. If you are able to continue to sink as you're lifting, then you create that perfect Taiji, the message that is taught to us by the masters, that you never stop any one place in the body. And so that I think is really important to never be able to lock your body in any position at any time. And I think that's something that I've been finding more and more helpful with myself. So I think I'll hold it. I'll leave it there. I'll hold my conversation there and let somebody else talk.
Okay. We've got a bunch of questions in chat. Redmond, do you want to?
Yeah, I just conscious Lee Sheely had his hand up for a while, so
Okay.
maybe Lee.
Go ahead, Lee.
I'm sorry, I always forget to lower my hand, but I did have a couple of points. We talk about the foot, the sole of the foot, and everything that's talking about the root being below that is correct. But if your foot is wobbling, that's a sign of instability and loss of balance. And I think to something that Keo said earlier, and it's really to Daniel's point as well, people are constantly off balance. And most people seem to seek the feeling of being stable and balanced. And to Daniel's point, I think that's an error. That's basically accomplished by muscular strength and training. In Tai Chi Chuan, we're always off balance, always about to fall over, and always making micro adjustments in our joints to go back into balance. But as soon as we get back into balance, we're on our way out of balance again. So it's those micro adjustments to all of the joints throughout the body that are the things you want to look for, not a feeling of balance and stability.
Great, thank you. Edmund?
So, question from Thomas Rose. Can someone address the problems with stability when one must be on one's heels as in turn and heel kick? That's my big bugaboo. I'm constantly falling off myself on the turn.
One of the things that I've tried with that spin before the turn and strike with heel is to try and not do the full turn. So this idea of finding the balance and not trying to turn to the point where you're going to do the kick, but to just try and do a smaller turn and keep adjusting that turn to become smaller and smaller and smaller until you find this is a turn I can do and I can hold my balance. And then a little bit more and a little bit more. So you're really not trying to go for the full turn, but trying to find how far can I turn and stay balanced and then build off of that. So you really have this sense of in the turn, you're understanding what balance is. And then gradually that increases to a point where you can get around to where you can do the kick. Natasha, did you want to address that?
You're muted, Natasha.
With that part there, it's about the patience to listen, because it's not really, when we're first learning it, we're sort of doing this and then like that to get around. But actually, it's about like corkscrewing down into the ground, and then you really, there's very little that you need to do. If you can do it minimally, then it won't be a question of balance. The fact that you turn on the heel, it's almost like if it's really going into the ground, then you won't lose that balance. And so it's always, you know, if it's what we've talked about before, any weight of any arm that sticks out in the form, that should all be feeding into the root, increasing the root, not taking out of it. So if everything comes back in a one point, put all your eggs in one basket, so to speak, then your balance will be there. Then you can be flexible on the outside. And, you know, what I mean by patience is to really investigate. And the difficult parts that we have are the most juicy bits to investigate. You know, like for instance, if you're stuck in push hands, there's always more that you can do. If you think you've gone back on the back foot, there's always more you can relax. And then that gives you the space for the next thing to happen. And even with the turn, if you relax about not thinking already laterally about turning, just the mental concept of being where you are, of going down, that allows it to turn without getting you off balance. If you're thinking, oh, now I've got to turn, it's almost like you've come out of your root with a thought. Even the mind is already going laterally instead of coming from the root.
I think along those lines, I think another important thing is that if you're off balance at the beginning of the turn, you're not going to regain your balance while you're turning. So as you are at that point of beginning the turn, that's a very, very key point in the thing. If anybody wants
to, we go slowly. That's why we do the form slowly. So we give ourselves the opportunity to really be where we are just to really actually be there. When you relax in any part of the form, you know, even the arms, even the beginning, you come to here, and most people just do, you know, but really relax, really relax, really relax, and the form does itself. You know, it opens up the path for the body to do it, so you don't have to make an effort.
One thing along these lines, at sort of a different angle of approaching it, when we talk about patience, people have talked about calm, people have talked about a lot of different things. That's not just a physical calm that we're talking about. There's a part, Mr. Smith quoted Professor Cheng once saying that he asked a class what percentage of the form was structure, you know, holding postures, things like that. What percent was the flow? People all came up with their answers to that. And then he said structure and flow combined were 30%. And everybody's sitting there like, you know, there's 70% missing here. And they said, well, what was that? And Professor Cheng said, it's you. And I think when we're talking about the calm, there's what we bring to the form. There's our energy, there's our life. And part of what we have to find in the physical is that emotional calm within ourselves. If anybody wants to bring a little bit up about that in terms of balance in our lives, not just balance in our Tai Chi form, but how does Tai Chi help us balance in that larger universe that we operate in? John? Yeah, John, go ahead.
Hi, I was wondering if somebody could articulate what is meant by rolling the Dan Chen. Jano, you mentioned that a few times, and I've heard that mentioned several times before, but never really got much of an explanation. So it'd be great if you could enlighten me. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Go ahead, Jano.
Okay, let me answer that one, but I do want to say something about the turn and the kick with the heel too. So I'm going to get a ball, actually. Jeff Herod talks about this quite a bit, that you can use the idea of a ball for your dantian rolling for the vertical turn that is part of sinking down, finding the ground, and opening your back, maintaining central equilibrium. So that's an image. I use that image also as a ball for my whole energy field. So the Dantian ball is the one that I sort of locate as an image, not as a fact, okay? That as I bend my knees, I'm rolling the ball this way. The Dantian to me has a still point in it, but it also has motion. So I don't know if it's a point, it's a bag, it's a ball, I don't know what it is, but I'm using that as an image. So I apologize for using a shorthand like that so quickly. But it does feel like also when the Dantian turns to the side, it's rolling this way. So it's rolling within the pelvic girdle. It's inside. But it also, Mike once talked about this, it rolls in all directions. And I think KO was talking a bit like this, like no matter where a ball is, there's a top and a bottom, and it can go in any direction. I think the Dantian does. So I think it's a bit complicated. So that's that. Now about the turn and kick with the heel, Maggie had some pointers about this. Let me see. So, and again, may not be able to do it, but she said it's about sinking and beating a drum. So as you sink down, something comes back up and brings you around. That's the one thing. You sink down and something comes up. Now, of course, you don't raise up, you don't straighten your legs, but it is about, I guess the chi comes up, I don't know, or force, you know. The other thing is she talked about, you don't haul yourself around with your arm or anything, but there is an integrity about this whole right side coming around. So as the right side's coming around, the left side's coming around this way. So you've got your ball rolling. So you beat the drum and the ball comes around. And as Mike said, don't force it. Matt used to have us practice going down, just going as far as we went, and then try to increase it. And I, of course, used to increase it with muscle. And then I realized it actually went further, the less I did. So Natasha's idea of just being patient and just let the ground come back up and you'll turn around. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Jano. We've got just a couple of minutes left. Is there someone else, Redmond?
Time for Mario. Mario,
you there?
Does it work?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, geez, I'm in trouble because I had some questions and then I realized that maybe I was going to upset people, but now I've been called on. Jesus. Well, anyway, my point is I heard a lot of people talk and everybody had different variation of the foot, how it doesn't. It was like at the end of it, I didn't understand anything. It became very complex. And then I found out that everybody's cutting the body into pieces, little pieces. And I'm thinking that if I want to jump, I don't think of the foot, I don't think of the hand, I don't think of the knees, I just jump. And I believe that then the foot goes where it has to go, all naturally without thinking about it. Could it be that we're making a mistake thinking about all these little detached details? Oh, was I going or did I froze?
No, you still, what was the last thing you said, Mario?
I don't know what was the first thing I said. No, I'm saying it seems to be like we're all over the place and I got confused. I mean, if I was a beginner, I wouldn't know what to do because I was so cut up into little small pieces. The foot was so cut up into little small pieces that I didn't even know it was a foot anymore. My point is, if I want to jump or I want to skip or I want to do something, I just do it. We all can do it. We all can jump without anybody telling us where the foot has to be. And chances are we all jump probably correctly. And I'm thinking that the form, as I'm understanding it now, by people explaining it, is so complex instead of simplifying it, and simplifying it more with an idea of an action or movement that you want to make, rather than how to do that movement by making pieces or piecemeal out of the body. Because I'm telling you, I got confused. I said, oh my God, I'll never learn Tai Chi this way. And then I realized, wait a minute, I am practicing Tai Chi, but I don't do it that way. I just take an idea. Whatever that idea you want to do. If there's a punch in the form, just make the idea of punching. And eventually, how do you make that punch better is by trying to create a better idea of a punch, instead of, oh, I got to put my hip here, my ankle there, my big toe here, my heel there, because now you're going out of the hole. And I did hear somewhere that Tai Chi is about moving the body as a single unit. If we break it up, like I heard, I think we're only going to get more confused. I got confused. Maybe I can't learn that way, and maybe some people can. I don't know. But I got confused with all the complexities, and everybody had a different idea on the same theme. And if I say jump, we all have the same idea.
Thanks, Mario. Did anyone want to respond to Mario directly on that? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Everyone should be brief if possible. Thank you.
Just that, Mario, if you jump, you actually go down first in order to jump up. And that's like Professor Cheng said that, I don't know if it was Yang Chang-fu, who had the bird that couldn't leave his hand because he would neutralize the downward force the bird needs to get up. And so the bird was stuck to his hand. So
yeah, but how do you neutralize the bird from jumping up? By bringing the hand down?
No, you don't think about it.
No, it doesn't work that way. That's only
you practice until it happens naturally.
It doesn't work that way. That's just dreaming. You said something which was beautiful. Da dire a fare c'è in mezzo il mare. So let's translate to from thinking to doing. There's a lot of different things you gotta put in the sea. It cannot be just from thinking that Yang Cheng Fu kept his hand there still without doing anything, without absorbing, like a car, when you have shocks and stuff, without absorbing the push off that the bird wants to do. You just can't leave the hand there. It doesn't work.
Mario.
I play with a lot of people.
The point is that some people can do it naturally, and some people.
We haven't seen anybody.
Their arms are all and legs all over the place.
Mario, everybody, hold on a second. Mario.
I know. It's me. I know.
Listen. You got to stop interrupting. You can say what you want, but you got to let other people speak. So we welcome your comments on here, but after you speak, let someone respond to you, and please don't interrupt them. It's not a
you got it. You're right. I get excited. It's only excitement.
I understand. I'm with you, but I want you to just hold that thought in mind. Hold that thought in mind. Okay, we got just a few minutes here. Daniel, go ahead.
But I think when you want to do something, you still, no matter what, you have to learn. When you jump, you can't just look at an adult or a 2-year-old kid and say they can just jump. That you went from an infant to a 2-year-old kid to a 5-year-old kid. And in between, there was a lot of falls and a lot of experimenting and a lot of training. And then when you go into high school, you want to learn how to do track and field jumping. You have to learn a different way. You get trained on body posture. And if you go into ballet, there's a whole different training. You have to break up the body and learn the techniques that are appropriate to what you're trying to do. And if you're doing Tai Chi, which is so different than anything else that we're instinctually or culturally trained to do, we have to untrain by retraining the body. And that's why we have the form. And that's why we have instructions on how we put our foot this way and how we have our hand that way. And all of that complicated stuff is to get past that. And then you can talk to the advanced practitioner, say, stop thinking about it, just do it. So I think it's just depends on what type of person, what level of person we're talking to in how we describe it in a more complicated way or in a more holistic way. To me, I think that's important. Just Taiji especially is so different than anything else we're doing. People who are naturally capable of going from 0 to 100, I think they're so talented, they forget the early steps that we all have to struggle through before we get past that into something more natural. So that's just my comments.
Yeah, thank you. One thing Maggie used to say was that you want to do your Tai Chi as naturally as you walk, only nobody had to teach you how to walk. You just figured out how to walk. We're gonna take a comment here from Stanley. Stanley hasn't spoken yet, and I think Carolyn was on and then she went off, but Carolyn and Stanley, if you guys want to make a comment, then we'll close out just because you haven't spoken yet.
Okay, thank you. This is Stanley. I appreciate Mario's idea, how I think the concept is how to apply that. I think sometimes when we do in the Tai Chi, we just don't think that. We just always think we just continue to practice, then it will work. But it is not the case. But on the other hand, I think very important is I think when we do in Tai Chi, we need to think when we do everything, whether we according to Tai Chi's principle. I think, for instance, like when we're doing a kick, when we kicking in Tai Chi form, some people just use the other kind of martial art way. They just try to kick very quickly, and because they suddenly do that, so they can keep their balance. But if we do that in the Tai Chi principle, you should be able to do this. You stand there and you kick your opponent slowly, and you are able to uproot your opponent. And if you can do that with your hand, then also you can do that with your foot, and to do that slowly, not quickly. Because if you do that very quickly, you just cheat. You can use other martial arts way. But if you do that slowly, you can uproot your opponent. Then that situation means you do that correctly. So I think all the function, all the application, you can use Tai Chi, but just remember use the Tai Chi principle. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Can I add my last thing? It's just my last thing. I mean, I think I should be able to add one last thing, and I'll go away.
All right.
I still think I disagree with it. Even though I understand what these two gentlemen after me said, I understand exactly what they said, and I see where they're coming from. I will add that I disagree with everything they said. And my reason is, going back to Natasha, Italian saying, from saying to doing, there's too much saying going on, and somehow it's not equating into doing. The idea that Tai Chi is so different, that Tai Chi you got to learn some book, Chinese book. It's taking Tai Chi out of naturalness. And if a Tai Chi is natural, then anybody can do it, and everybody should be able to do it. And the best way to start is to do something as naturally as possible, whether it's running, walking, jogging, jumping, and whatever. Whether then let's go back to the gentleman who talked about jumping. Yeah, first you start from jumping. You will don't ever go away from the idea of jumping, and then then you will automatically and naturally add little details to jump better. But jumping never goes out of your mind. So in Tai Chi, whether you're punching or kicking, you're always doing that. There is no, in Tai Chi, kicking is different. No. How you learn to kick may be done differently. You end up with kicking. So it's almost like saying there shouldn't be any difference in kicking Tai Chi or kicking karate or kicking Kung Fu or whatever. How you go about to introduce a person how to do something, that may be different. So whether it's done slowly so you can pay attention, that's fine. But to say that Tai Chi is different, you guys are lost. You guys are completely lost, because it makes no, it doesn't work in the function world. It's all in the doing. And you got to change your idea, I think. I know, I'll shut up. Goodbye. Goodbye. It's so hard.
Thank you, Mario.
Bye-bye.
One day we're going to find something in here where we all agree. And that's my goal, is to find what is the thread, because I've talked with you, Mario, about this before, and underlying this, there's areas of agreement. And I want to find, if in future discussions, if we can find and explore those areas where there is agreement, I think we'll get a better understanding of where are the differences. But if we just focus on, well, you know, you're lost, you're out at sea, that doesn't make any sense. We don't get too much more back from that.
Yeah, I know. I talk bad. I know. I talk bad.
Yeah. No. So, but I think that there are things that we can really explore if we can get at and start from what are the things that make sense about what the other person is saying, and then build off that to, this is the areas where I find a difference of opinion. So anyway, we're gonna end it there today. We're running a little over. Did you want to say something, Redmond?
Just apologies, Judith and Julian, we didn't get to your questions, but yeah, next time.
Okay. So just a quick reminder that next week we are planning to do the second part of the tribute to Ben Lowe. Again, people who wanted to speak didn't get a chance in that first session. So again, just if you're planning to speak, if you would like to speak, we welcome your comments, we welcome your thoughts. But we are going to ask that people really try to be succinct and try and understand that there's a lot of people that want to talk, and we want to give as many people that opportunity as possible. So thank you again for coming. A lot of food for thought today. Hopefully some of it will resonate with you in your practice. Take care, be safe, and look forward to seeing you next week.